today about a very, I'd like to talk to you all today about a very exciting program that we have recently rolled out. And that's to help people from around the world come to the United States to be teachers. We badly need teachers, and I appreciate all of your interest and consideration of this program. So, what I'd like to discuss, oops, it's not forwarding. Um, There we go. Okay, so what I'd like to discuss over the course of our conversation today is why the U.S. needs you as teachers. And then I'd also like to share why we think you might find this an attractive offer. I want to explain how to become a teacher in the U.S. And then finally, we will finish with what you should do if after hearing this presentation, you are still interested in moving forward. So the latest estimates I've seen is we have over 36,000 open teaching positions in the United States. And it's not concentrated in any one part of the United States. We have shortages all over the country. Why do we have this many shortages? One is demographics. And it's not only we have a shortage of teachers, we have a shortage of a lot of professions. In fact, in addition to teachers, we also help nurses, engineers, and accountants come to the United States. And the primary reason why we have this many shortages is because of the demographics in the United States. We have an aging population. The bulk of the population in the U.S. was born after World War II, and a lot of those people are retiring, passing away, and we badly need more young people in our country to help maintain our quality of life and keep our economy going. And then a lot of professions, because of COVID, saw an exit of people as well. So one of the states that we recruit into is South Carolina. South Carolina is in the southeast of the United States. It's along the Atlantic Ocean. And for the 23-24 school year, there was 1,613 vacant positions, and that was a 9% increase from the previous year. And the district saw over 7,000 teachers leave the profession over the course of that year. Some retired, some transferred to other school districts, some were dismissed. And the bulk of these teachers had less than 5 years of experience. And as a result of that, what we're seeing nationally is the pay for teachers in the United States has increased significantly. And right now, the average salary around the United States is over $66,000 a year. Okay. So, what do you need to do in order to meet the requirements? The first is you have to graduate with a bachelor's degree or greater in any area. And I can't emphasize that enough. We are not recruiting teachers to come to the United States. We're recruiting college graduates to come to the United States. And you have to complete an alternative certification program. Now, I'm going to explain in detail what that is, but those are the two academic requirements for you to come to the U.S. You have a bachelor's degree, and then the alternative certification is a very condensed way to get a degree in education that qualifies you to teach in the United States. So here's the overall high-level process of how this works. The first thing is you have to get accepted into an alternative certification program. And we work with several around the United States, various states, and there's two things that are required in order to get into those programs. One, if you're not from an English-speaking country, and Nigeria is an English-speaking country, and so is Kenya, then you have to pass the test of English as a foreign language. So, for example, the people on the call from Cameroon would have to pass the test of English as a foreign language. And then the other thing you need to do is prove your foreign credentials. We work with a third-party credentialing agency that will evaluate foreign degrees. Okay. Once you've been accepted into the alternative certification program, there's a variety of things you do before you leave your home, whether it be in Africa or the UK or what have you. There's about 100 to 150 hours of online training. You do virtual classroom observations. And then the final thing you need to do is you take an exam at a testing center. Now, in Africa, the testing center we work with is in Accra. There is also a testing center in Johannesburg, South Africa. But we understand for most people that is a far more difficult and expensive proposition. So there's a testing center in Accra, Ghana. If people are on this call in the UK, there's a testing center in London. But that's the next step you need to take in order to proceed in the process. Once you have completed those three things, you are eligible to get a job in the United States. When you get to the United States, you are a student teacher. So while on the one hand, I use the word student, on the other hand, you're paid while you're going through this process. There's a classroom internship, supervised teaching, another 150 hours of online training, and then there's one more exam you need to take called the PPR, or the Pedagogy and Professional Responsibility Exam. And once you've completed that, congratulations, you're then eligible to get your teacher's license. So there are two services that we are offering to help you go through the process. One is called the concierge service, and this is Go Teach in the USA, okay? The other is to enroll in with one of our alternative certification partners. And for South Carolina, for example, we work with an alternative certification program called Teachers of Tomorrow. Okay, so here are again, the requirements for beginning the process. If you're not from an English-speaking country, and there's a list of countries that are officially English-speaking, then you need to pass the test of English as a foreign language. Now, I will often get the question, well, I took the IELTS, does that count? Unfortunately not. Most of these schools require the TOEFL. And then the other thing is you need to have a minimum grade point average, GPA, in the courses that you study. Okay, I mentioned South Carolina as an example of the state that we work in. There were 1,613 teacher vacancies in South Carolina, as I mentioned before. But I'll tell you what is also a fascinating statistic is they hired over 2,200 teachers from outside the United States. So school districts, because they, again, badly need teachers, they see the value of teachers from other countries, work hard to hire teachers from outside the US. Now, the visa that you are eligible for when you come to work in the US is an H-1B. An H-1B is a work visa that leads to immigration. Now, typically, these can be very difficult visas to obtain. However, this is a very important part of our program. When you come to work for a not-for-profit or a government agency, those school districts, such as a school district, they are very often exempt from the cap and the lottery. So this is about as easy a way to obtain an H-1B visa that exists because of that exemption. When you get licensed, or when you begin the process of getting licensed for to become a teacher, your license will depend on, or will be categorized in two ways. One, what is the age group of the children you'll be teaching? Early childhood to grade 6, 4 to 8, or 7 to 12, high school. And then for the older kids, there is a subject matter specialty: English, math, science, or social studies. Now, that's the purpose of the exam that you take prior to coming to the US. What it's meant to do is, if you're a nurse, for example, and want to teach science, it will allow you to do that. If you're an engineer and you want to teach math, it will indicate your competency level in teaching math. Okay, so a lot of people have asked also, hey, if I get licensed in a particular state, Texas, South Carolina, Michigan, 3 states we're working with, can I work in another state? The answer is yes. After you get your license, your full license, there are almost always reciprocal arrangements with other states where you can work in other states. Okay. Then when you're ready to come to the United States, part of the concierge service is to facilitate your move to the United States in terms of finding housing, making sure your family gets settled. That's a big part of the services that we offer with this program. So how do you move forward? Well, the first part of the process is to enroll in Go Teach in the USA. And then the second thing you do is you enroll with one of our alternative certification partners. Okay. The cost of the concierge service is $1,000, and we charge two separate ways. You can either pay the entire amount up front, or you can pay $500 when you enroll, and you can pay $100 a month after that with a 1% service charge. There are additional expenses that are not covered by the fee. So again, take into consideration a variety of other expenses that add up to roughly $500. Okay. The alternative certification program is about $4,000. However, this is a huge opportunity. You only pay $299 for this example with Teachers of Tomorrow, and then the rest you don't have to pay until after you get to the United States and after you get a job. So there is deferred payment to the alternative certification program. Other things that are excluded from the cost that you should think about in your budget: the visa, the travel expenses, uh, any additional family members, and then obviously housing and other type of things when you arrive and before you get your first paycheck. Okay. Over the course of time that I have been doing this presentation, I get a lot of questions, and so I want to share with you some of the questions that I get that you may also have. So, is the number of advertised vacancies in South Carolina too small for the projected influx of candidates we expect? I just mentioned there's 1,600 open positions. There is now only 92 people on this call. So even if all of you signed up, there's more than enough. And as I said, we are continuing to expand our program to work with alternative certification programs in other states, including Texas and Michigan right now. What is the guarantee that your agency can secure teaching jobs? Now, I would love to be able to tell you I can guarantee you a job. I can't say that. I couldn't say that to anybody. If you're coming to the United States and studying at Harvard, I could not guarantee you a job because it would depend on your ability to be a good candidate for that job, your ability to interview well, etc. The only thing I can tell you with a high degree of certainty is there are a lot of open teaching positions in the United States. How long has your organization existed, and how many Nigerians have you or Africans have you successfully sponsored? This is a new program. Nobody's ever done this before. Now, I realize that would also cause a little bit of nervousness. We do have people who are going through the process as we speak. We've seen a lot of interest in the program. People from Mexico have come into the program. There's a huge need for bilingual teachers, but this is a relatively new program. But I will also say that the cost that we are charging, the $1,000 concierge fee, is an introductory rate. Once we start graduating and getting people through the system, we anticipate raising the price. So the introductory price of $1,000 is with recognition. Now, the university has been around for many years in Mexico, and so you can check out Universidad Santander in Mexico. We have been around for a while. What is your own profile designation in this whole process? We are the concierge. We are not an agent to the alternative certification programs. We're partners with them. We work with them to allow you to get to the United States. Okay. Why can't the examination center be brought to Nigeria? How many candidates do you need from Nigeria to bring the examination center? I got to tell you, international testing is a very tricky issue. And we are actually working with the company that does the international testing. They're called Educational Testing Services, to offer the program in Nigeria on a temporary basis. So I don't want to promise you it's going to be done. We're in discussions. And there's a lot of security that goes around doing testing outside the States, and that's part of it. So for now, at least, the testing center that we're working with is in Accra, Ghana. Or if you can get to Johannesburg, South Africa, or there are places outside of Africa, you can also teach. Which organization is handling this webinar? Are they legit? I'd like to think we are. Now, I do get this question a lot, and unfortunately, there are a lot of shady situations and scams on the internet. And there's two things that I'd like to share with you that should give you a level of comfort. One is Universidad Santander is recognized by the government of Mexico as an accredited university. You can go on the website for Mexican higher education. It's called Secretaría de Educación Pública, SEP, and you can see that we are an approved university. And then the other thing, that in each of the states that we have an alternative certification partner, they are also required to be approved by the state, and you will find their names on an approved website for the state. So that is probably the best evidence, data that I can share with you as to the legitimacy of this program. What are the modalities of the program? Two modalities. One is online education, the online hours that you have to do. And then the other is being in the classroom under supervised teaching. That's the other thing. What are the financial requirements and commitments? I think I just shared that with you. Happy to answer any more questions. The duration of the program, there's sort of three phases. One is prior to the alternative certification program. We can get you with the appropriate material being submitted, your transcripts, et cetera, into the ACP within a couple, 3 weeks. That's relatively quickly. The next stage is once you're in the ACP until you get to the US. We usually say that takes about 9 to 12 months. It involves the requirements to test. It involves interviewing for the jobs, getting the visas, but it could take 9 to 12 months to get to the United States. And then after that, your student teaching experience in the US is an academic year. How do I secure a teaching job in the US? One of the things we do as part of the concierge service is we help identify school districts that are hiring, get your resumes out, and help coordinate the entire job process through the visa. What about accommodations and flights? Not covered by this program. Those are additional costs. And can I come with dependents? A very, very important question. And the answer is yes. The goal of the H-1B program is to keep families together. You can bring a spouse and children under 21 years old. Now, they can't work. And so one of the things we are seeing are couples joining the program together, which frankly creates a fairly nice dual income household in the United States. Two couples, a husband and wife working as teachers in a school district, that's over $120,000 of anticipated income. And that is a fairly significant income in the household income in the US. Okay, so one other question that I did not get, but I may be on this line. There may be nurses on this call, and I've gotten a lot of requests by nurses on how to come to the US and be a nurse. There is a huge shortage of nurses in the United States, and there's a huge number of nurses from outside the US that work in the US. And the number one source of nurses that we have in the US is from the Philippines. Number two is India. Number three is South Korea. But the fourth and fifth largest source of international nurses in the US are from Nigeria and Kenya. So it is absolutely possible for someone to come to the US. Now, what I've found that a lot of Nigerian and Kenyan nurses in the US have done is they've come to the US and studied nursing. And that's an easy way to come. However, that is not an option for a lot of people. And a lot of people on this call may already be nurses and don't need a nurse education. One of the greatest barriers I have seen for nurses from Africa to come to the US is taking the licensing exam. It's called the NCLEX, and that's obviously required in order to get a nursing license in the US. So one can either find a testing center outside of the US, and they're not easy to find. They're even more difficult than the ones for the teachers. Or what we are suggesting or proposing is for nurses to come to the US as teachers. Then once you're in the United States, you have an income, you can study for the licensing exam, and the ability to get a nursing license once you're in the US is much easier. Now, it's a longer route. I do understand that, but for many nurses that we have talked to, it is the best route to take. Okay. Um, I hope my computer did not fall asleep. Let me get this thing going. Okay. So anyway, to learn more, there's information on our website, goteachintheusa.com. But if you're ready to get started to proceed with the process, educarelink.com is Amika's website, and he can get you started on the process. And then I am always happy to answer questions. I love to talk about what we are doing. This is my contact information. This is my WhatsApp number, my email, and I'm always happy to answer questions as well. So let me go to the chat. We seem to have gotten a number of questions. Let me try to address those.
Yeah. So anyone who has a question, please raise your hands up, and we will call you as you start. Mr. Vincent, you can start. I will stop the recording.